Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Building Relationships with Your Audience webinar. We're really excited to have you here. If you're watching this live, thank you for taking the time to join us. And if you're watching the replay, welcome. This webinar will last about 45 minutes to an hour, and we're going to be talking about building relationships with your audience to improve your brand and your business. Let me start by sharing with you here our presentation. My name is Bruna. I am the content marketing specialist here at Cyberimpact. And I'm very excited to have with us Joe Teo, the CEO of HeyOrca. Joe, thank you for taking the time to be with us. Would you please introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bruna. I'm really excited to be here with you. So my name is Joe. I am the CEO of HeyOrca. So if you don't know HeyOrca, we are a social media scheduler that's built for teams. We make it very easy for you to work with your team on social media content and then publish it and report on all of your engagement metrics, community metrics, all in one place. And I had the pleasure to sort of like share the same event with Cyberimpact in a few speaking positions this year. So it's been an honor for Bruna to invite me to her webinar. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. And you're going to see why Joe is the perfect person to talk about this topic right here in the future. But first, I want to introduce to you what we're going to be talking for the next few minutes to an hour. So relationships with your audience, what does that mean? Why your brand needs to worry about this? Why does your business needs to worry about building engaged and meaningful relationships? Why not just try to reach as many people as possible, and then once they make a sale, you're good, you move on to the next person. You'll see why that's not the best strategy, especially nowadays. We'll also talk about the impact of having communities and building brand loyalty, making sure that people remember you, they care about you and your brand, and how you can take advantage of that to continue growth and improvement of the overall customer experience, even company culture and everything. And then we'll talk a little bit about how to start a brand community. And Joe's the perfect person for this. We're going to have a Q&A at the end. If you have any questions, feel free to send them in the chat here. We're going to be taking a look during this. If we have anything that we can add to the middle of the conversation, we'll definitely do, but we'll have some time if you want to ask specific questions about your situation and your experience with brand communities. Feel free to do so, and we'll discuss a little bit more at the end. In the meantime, if you want to share where you're logging in from, please do in the chat. We're happy to see people from everywhere around Canada. And let's talk a little bit about what are these relationships, because when we talk about relationships, people might think there's a very personal tone to this word, but there are several kinds of relationships a brand or a business can have. This can be partners or affiliates. This can be people that you meet through integrations with your platform. If you're a SaaS company, for us, we have some partners we're very proud to have. We have an ambassador program. I believe HeyOrca has an ambassador program as well.
Hmm.
So these relationships, they are long lasting. You want to make sure that people uh, continue to engage with your brand in this level when it's business to business or business to clients. And that's what I mean with long-term clients. So people who have been with you maybe from the beginning, but maybe 3 months, 6 months, or a year. It really depends on your business and your industry. But long-term clients, we've heard this many, many times before. It's easier and less costly to keep a client than to get a new one, to acquire a new one. But it's not only about that purchase. Having long-term clients can have several benefits to your business other than purchasing. Also, relationships can be a sequential customer service. And what I mean by this is that if someone is having a conversation with a customer service specialist or a client success person, and then for some reason the line cuts off or they lose the chat, they have to open it again. And then they go through a whole bot and they have to start the conversation all over again. Having systems in place or having a log of the questions or situations that the person have can be really helpful to create a better customer experience, and that increases the loyalty and the feeling that people have with your brand. And then engage clients and followers on social media or other platforms, in closed communities in other platforms. And the top of all of these relationships will be having a real brand community that we're going to explore. Let's put some definitions on the table so everyone's aware of what's what. So brand community is a space or a place where people who have an emotional connection with your brand can connect with other people who have emotional connections to your brand, or with your brand itself, with the team who's doing this. So a lot of when we talk about community is not just putting the logo of the company over there, it's having this, being able to talk to someone and feeling like there's a person there who cares, who understands, and who knows that you need help in some way, or you want to share something, a frustration, a compliment, or anything like this. That's a community. Interaction, engagement, those are the words that define a community. Brand awareness is different. Brand awareness is how people know about your brand, how well people know about it, if they've heard about it, if they've seen it on Social East, Social West, Social Pacific. So if they've seen your brand around, like, oh yeah, I'm aware of who Cyberimpact or HeyOrca is, but maybe they're not part of our communities because they're not engaged. They don't have that connection with their brands yet. So this is different scenarios that you have here. One of the main reasons that business should care about relationships is because we see more and more people really want to have more personalization and more engaged experiences, especially with the advancement of technology. Obviously, we've been talking about AI for the past 2 years, and there's no doubt that it's a great tool and a great resource. But in the end, it's not the same as having a relationship and building that organic and in a personal level kind of relationship with our clients, and seeing their demands firsthand, and remembering, oh yeah, I remember that this person sent me a message to customer service. So now I have this information here. Let me do something different for them. Or I remember you've been to this event, and then send a message, hey, are you going this year? Can we offer you a ticket to join the event if you're not going? Or just considering how the person connects with the brand on a more personal level than just, okay, this client spends $50, $100, $200, or $1,000 with us. Let's give him special treatment because he's giving us more money. And sometimes we don't see how opportunities may come from different places because we're not building these relationships with all types of clients and engaged users that connect with our brand. So this is something to be mindful of, how people are looking more for personalization with time, because a good engaged community, it can take you to the next level of I hate this word, advocacy. I hate this word. It's so complicated for me to say, advocacy. So this means people are advocating for your brand. They're saying to other people, hey, I like this. I like HeyOrca. It's not just the logo that looks cute and nice. They are a good platform. It works. It solved my problems. So this word of mouth, and not just word of mouth, we've been seeing how thought leadership and personal brands in a professional level have been growing for the past couple of years. We're spending a lot of time on LinkedIn, and that impacts a lot of brands. Even we're talking about people to people, not business to business. I like to say people to people and not customer to customer. But this can lead us to having a bigger awareness, so then we can have a better community. Also, the lifetime value of customers, like I said, can increase because you start to build more loyalty. They have no reason to leave you if they have that good experience, they have the good product, if they have an overall connection with your brand. Also, it's a great opportunity for you to have feedback and insights on what is the perception people are having of your brand, because when you're inside, we see it some way, we think, yeah, this will work, people love this, I'm sure they're going to love this, and then it doesn't work. Sometimes you don't know why. Sometimes you don't have the systems in place to understand why the changes you've made or the new features you've made, they just didn't give you the results you were looking for. But when you have an engaged community, you have the space to go to them, and maybe even before a launch, ask, okay, so what do you need? What are you looking for? What are you missing that we're not delivering yet? How can we help you? And this will overall save you time, money, energy, and frustrations. In my case, hair falling, which is a serious issue. And obviously, a community is a great space for you to bring in more people, and then you increase the size of engaged users you have with your brand. So a couple of examples so you can get a better idea what I mean when I mean engaged community. It's not just creating, I don't know, a Instagram chat with a few people. It's not sending a forced newsletter on LinkedIn. That's not it. It's creating opportunities for people to connect and engage with your brand and your values. The best way I believe to connect a brand with the customers are the values of the brand, what they're going for, not just the products. Yes, there are several great products out there, but why should people care about your product and your business? So Lululemon, everyone knows this, a Vancouver company here. They are very adamant in promoting health and fitness and creating a healthy lifestyle. Obviously, it's a athletic sportswear brand, but they do have a lot of activities. They do a lot of events. They connect with studios, with gyms, with small groups, yoga groups that meet at the beach or at the park during summer. Hey, let's partner up. Let's engage with one another. Let's show that we care about having a healthy lifestyle. And this includes also not just exercise, physical exercise, but taking care of mental health and protecting our connections with our mind, with our body. And you can see some examples here. They've been doing activities to engage with indigenous communities and showing how yoga can make sure you reconnect with your body and your mind. They have gym exercise, they have challenges, they have an ambassador program, so they rely a lot on content for social medias and UGC. Another example, which was one of my vices this year, was 3D printing. So you have a brand that's Bamboo Lab that's started last year. I think they have a little bit more than a year now. And their Reddit stream is already like 153,000 followers, is one of the biggest ones on Reddit. They have a subreddit just for the community. So the first one is very official, but the community is 7,600 members, and it's one of the top 8 in the website. So this is a very engaged community. They created a whole platform, which is called Maker World, for people to share their designs, and people are incentivized to keep sharing. So whenever you go there, you print something, you can go back, leave a review. And once you do that, you get, it's called the boost. So you can boost other people's projects, and they get money from this and that they can use as gift cards or something. So it keeps itself rolling. So they don't even have to engage themselves, the team, with people, because people just want that space where they connect, they can troubleshoot things. It's incredible. They do contests. So this is a way for them to keep their community engaged and interested. And you don't see a lot of photos of the printer itself. If you go to their Instagram, it's all about what you can do with the product and not the product itself. So that's something that it's very powerful if you know how to do it wisely with your community. And the next example, I'm gonna switch it over to Joe here so he can tell you a little bit more about the work that they've been doing at HeyOrca with their community, which I'm a big fan of. One of the reasons we wanted to have Joe here. Yeah, Joe, take it over. You can explain this a lot better than me.
No, thanks so much. Yeah, I thought you made really good points around community. And I think like the fundamental shift that we're seeing is that content marketing in 2024 and beyond is based around people, and it's not around just content, right? So if you think about content marketing back in 2010, it's all about like putting content out and hopefully people were engaged. And it's about putting as many, optimizing for the SEO, showing
Yeah.
up and ranking. And now people, instead of reading blog posts, they are watching videos. Instead of downloading ebooks, we are swiping through carousels. The whole thing around content has changed. And also
Yeah.
with the rise of AI, people want more genuine connections, and you're seeing sort of like these close communities opening up. And close
Mhm.
communities don't just mean places where people can interact with one another. Close community can also mean a community that you can foster through a newsletter. It's how
Yeah.
you write it and who you write it for and the content that you put in that actually matters. So I'm hoping to tell you our story around how we actually stumbled really on community and really hopefully be able to inspire some of you to really take this mindset around community, what this means. Hopefully, you'll be able to walk away having more of an actionable impact on what you can do later on. So I put a question in the chat. My question is, what is the hardest part of building a community for you, or even social media? What is preventing you from doing it? Or even if you're doing it, what is the barrier that you're currently experiencing? I'd love to know so that we'll be able to tailor this webinar a little bit more for you. Um, but for now, let me just share my screen and we'll go from there. Okay. So I want to start off with our story. So I have a confession to make. I wasn't a believer of community, you know, up until like pretty recently. So the reason, if I can take you back to 2022, I remember this line going up and up and up. So this is basically the cost of acquisition for a customer, and we were just like putting a lot of money on paid marketing, like giving Zuck our money, just giving Meta a ton of money. And it worked until it didn't, until we started seeing things spike really, really high. And out of necessity, we had to find an alternative. And that's when we start looking to our community and say, let's bet on our community, let's show up for them, let's make them the main character. And, to Bruna's point, instead of sort of like talking about ourselves, let's sort of empower them and advocate for them so that they will then in turn advocate for us. And that's sort of like when we see our cost per acquisition coming down, when we stop actually putting money onto those paid platforms and start investing in our community. So instead of money, we actually trade it in for time and relationships and connections with our community, which makes us a lot better from there. So one thing I would say, when you're creating content, instead of asking yourself, how is this going to rank on Google or how is this going to show up on social, I think the first question is, what does our community want to learn about? And that's sort of like what I want to talk about, which is the mindset shift. And this really helped us define everything that we do from there. So create for your community and not the algorithm, because your community is the antidote to the algorithm, because the algorithm is actually in service of your community. So just a few charts here that I took from my platform. These are sort of the engagement levels that we got after we sort of focused more on our community. And these are the impressions as well, and people talking about our brand over time since we started really focusing on our community. And when we show up for them, they start showing up for us. And so I want to show you some of the things that, the cool things that our community did for our brand as well. So before we go further, one thing that I would say is community is not an initiative. Community is the outcome of everything that you do. So the Cyberimpact emails that you send, the social media, how you show up on social media, the other things that you actually host, like this webinar for Cyberimpact, these are all part of building up a community, a sense. It's a feeling, a connection that you have to a brand. And the kicker is like the connection that you have for a brand is not based on their relationship with you per se, but it's about the space that they're able to create to bring all of the like-minded people together. And because of that, you associate that positive feeling to the brand. And so community is not initiative. So a lot of times I talk to people about community, and the next question they ask is, okay, so how do I buy this? How do I make this community program happen? But what I learned over time is that community is an outcome. So it's about how we actually approach everything here and to create this sense of community among our members. So we're in the business of building communities. We are not in the business of just posting content for content's sake, sending newsletter for newsletter's sake, posting social for social's sake, all of that. I want to challenge you and ask yourself, how is this building a sense of community among people that follow us, among people that actually are associated with our brand? So we know that we are shifted from a place where people are following brands to now a world where people follow people. People are shifting their attention from just consuming content to now looking for spaces that they actually trust other people. And if you have been part of a community, I'm sure everyone's part of some sort of a community, and think about the community that really impacted your life and start asking yourself, what are those things that actually make those communities such a great place to be? It's probably around you have a shared interest. It's a positive space. It creates opportunities to meet like-minded people. And this is something that's relevant and resonates with you. You take all these components, and you ask yourself, how can I recreate that in my email? How can I recreate that in my socials? How can I recreate that in my webinars that I'm hosting? And it totally changes how you are seeing your programs. You're not seeing them as I need to run a webinar, I need to send an email. You're actually seeing them as spaces. How do I actually create content that actually allow that community feeling to happen? So one exercise I thought was good for me, I thought about the community that I'm part of, and I thought about like what made that community so good. That's the same thing. We're only transferring that onto the digital space. Okay. There is a question. I would say that algorithms on our social network systems make certain content dedicated people much less visible. It's also hard to hold people's attention in a world where they're over solicited. Yeah, that's a really great point. So, which I hope to talk about how actually open communities or social media communities and closed community like a newsletter actually play together because attention is fleeting, right? Um, and so there's two parts here. So that hopefully will help you, Pauline, as we share our story. So one part is what should we sort of talk about on social media in these spaces so that we're able to get in front of more people with shared interests. And then the other part is how do we use things like newsletters or emails to actually build a sense of community as well. Okay, so you are only as strong as your community. So your community's perception of you equals your brand trust. So if you think about Lululemon, they have a big community and have a large positive sentiment to it, and that contributes to their brand awareness and their brand trust. So that's why we should invest in community, because community is an outcome, or brand trust is an outcome of a good community. So let's talk about what is and isn't a community. So this is, again, we got to start with a mindset shift. So when we think about community, it's about conversational. How do we create spaces for people to actually interact with one another and not just broadcasting? How do we actually interact with people that are showing up for us, the best advocates for our brand? And how do we then co-create with them? So how do we have them on our reels? How do we have them on our blog? And it's about how you show up that is different. It's supported, it's giving, it's about long-term relationship, and it's more so around platforming your community as opposed to always talking about ourselves. So how do we build a community? So these are the questions that we actually went through as a company. So if you are interested, I'll drop a link later in the chat, but you can also scan the QR code here. But this is where we're able to see the questions that we need to answer to start seeing where are the gaps and where are the things that we need to fill out. All right. So it goes with sequentially according to these things. So first of all, you need to ask yourself, what's the purpose of building the community? What's the shared interest you have with them? Because you want to make sure that the things that you're talking about has relevance for them. Why should they follow you? How do you measure success? What are the different roles and experiences that you're creating? And then how do you actually engage with them? So I'll bring you through on a high level some of these questions, but we have a more detailed sort of academy as well that will bring you through it. Okay, so first of all, very, very important. So before you go and say, yeah, let's do let's do community, I think we need to step back and ask ourselves, why are we building a community? Because the different objectives would then set the different tone for your community. So for example, just to use the makerspace example from Bruna, right? So the community that they have is a supportive, it's probably a success community where they want people to showcase everything, all the cool things that they were doing on the 3D side of things. But things can be very different depending, your community can look very different depending on your objective. So how to think about it, we use this spaces model by David Spink. So he has a really good book about community called The Business of Belonging. Highly recommend, definitely changed how I thought about marketing and community. So you want to ask yourself, is it for support? So is it a place where people are going to ask for advice, right? Having peer support from one another. Is it about product? So some communities, maybe the maker community, is about like helping them build the future of 3D, and then through using that, they're able to iterate their product. So getting product feedback. Is it about acquisition, which for the large part is probably a lot of our goal, is how do we acquire more people? Is it about contribution to a social cause? If you're a nonprofit, is it about contributing to it? Is it about creating engagement, or is it helping them be successful in their role? So all of these things would then change how you actually think about the community. one thing I would say is that it can be actually multiple. It doesn't have to be only one thing. But the most important thing is to know why we're here and what kind of community we want. So, for example, in HeyOrca, it's about acquisition and it's about support. We want to create a space where social media managers feel supported and they're able to feel empowered as a professional, and because of the trust that they built, they will try out HeyOrca and hopefully be a HeyOrca user. So that's sort of like why we build our community, is to support and also to acquire.
Joe, if I can ask a real quick, I don't know if you're
Yeah.
going to mention in the future. I think when people see this is a great model for people to start thinking about how they want to build their community. How long did it take for you guys to understand, okay, this is what we need to do, and then process and identify, okay, this is what our community needs to be about? Sometimes people think like, okay, let's do a 1 hour meeting and then that's it. We found this is the community. It's done. Sometimes it's not that simple. When you have
Yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
also a small team, it's hard to bounce ideas. But this is a long process, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like it's not like overnight in that sense, just like
Hmm.
anything. So one thing that we talk about is community market fit. Like you need to find like what resonates, but it's
Hmm.
your best guess. Like you think like this is going to
Of course.
resonate based on like the conversations you have in your community, and you're gonna try that. And I would say it's an iterative process. For us, it took longer because no one actually told us about these things. So hopefully we're able to tell you some of the things that we learned and shorten that time. So for us, it took us like 2 years to learn. I don't think it needs to take 2 years to build a community. I think like it can be shorter, but
Yeah.
it is longer term investment. Um, but it's about like experimenting, having talking to your community. What do you want to hear? Actually, one of the game changing thing is us just sending a survey and say, what do you want to see in our newsletter? What do you hate? What do you like? What should we do more of? And our webinars as well, we just ask like, what topics do you want? And so
Mhm.
then we tailor everything according to them versus saying like, hey, we should talk about this. We just ask our
Mhm.
community like, how would you, from a scale 1 to 10, how much would you recommend us? So that will accelerate your sort of community building process. So I wish I knew that earlier, because before that we were just trying different things. But just straight up ask your community like what do they want to know. Another really good way is to look at your people that you admire or competitors, like what they're doing that's really cool that you can take inspiration and then do that. So you can do that for social. Look at other people's social media channels, like what they're doing that actually like helps them build community. Same thing for newsletter as well. Any newsletters that you really like, what you're doing that I can incorporate. So that's also another way to be able to take inspiration. But being able to ask your customers directly or community directly would probably be like the best start.
For sure.
And so talking about like what should we sort of talk about? How do we sort of think about community market fit? We have to think about shared identity. So we don't want to just talk about our brand. So in HeyOrca, we don't want to talk about just like what HeyOrca does, our new product release feature and things like that. We want to talk about something that actually we share with our community. And the things that we share with our community is basically the social media manager life, people in marketing, things that the algorithm changes, like what Pauline brought up. So these are the things that we want to talk about. We want to make sure that we actually strike the middle ground and not just talking about our brand. So ask yourself, what do you have? What is shared interest that your community have in common? So in social media, this is very important right now because the algorithm is going to show your content to more people that they think have the shared interest. So let's say if we like Harry Potter, I like Harry Potter, I'm gonna see more Harry Potter stuff from maybe fan clubs that are creating these types of content, and they're reaching me through the algorithm. So the algorithm's job is to find more people that would think that this is relevant for them. So if I open up Bruna's TikTok or Instagram, it's gonna look totally different than mine. Not because we have different friend group, it's because we have different interests.
Yeah, and the thing that people forget sometimes when it comes to the algorithm is, like you said, it is in service of the users. So
Yeah,
it's going to show what you're telling it to show you. So
exactly.
yeah, so I started looking at 3D printing. So now I see a bunch of things being printed. I started watching the F1 documentary, and now my Instagram just started to pop up with a bunch of memes for F1. So
Yes.
it will show you what you want to see, and you have to remember your audience will have the same experience. So if it's not being shown, to them, if you're not appearing to them, maybe they're not that interested in
Yeah,
what you're saying or what the algorithm is understanding that you're saying. So this is something to always be mindful of.
yeah, exactly. Um, and then ask yourself like, what is the value? So why should someone follow us? Is it for education? Is it for entertainment, inspiration, advocacy? Is it for promotions? Like, why is it? Why would they follow our account? Why should they subscribe to our newsletter? So again, always putting them at the forefront. And then this is really important. Just make sure that you pick a metric that aligns with the purpose of your community. So for example, if it's about brand awareness, then you want to pick a metric like mentions or reach or impressions, right? But it's about, let's say, more about conversion, then you want to pick a more conversion focused thing. So that way it sort of informs the content that you're creating as well. If you're running a newsletter, it sort of like allows you to know that we're running this on Tuesdays because this is more of a conversion focus, and these other things are sort of like educational focus, and our leading metric is something else like click through to a blog post, click through to a social. All right. So one thing that we do at HeyOrca, we ask ourselves what's a leading indicator and what's a lagging indicator. So leading indicator would tell you that you're on the right path, and you get that data a lot faster. So for us, if we put out the right content, we should see more follower growth, more brand mentions, more post engagement. But the lagging measure will be those things that come because of those results. So we'll see that maybe in a month's time or 3 months' time. So referrals, attributed revenue, all the bottom line metrics are lagging indicators of the things that we're doing well on the top end. And then when you sort of like are able to look at your community, you want to understand like who are your advocates, who will be your co-creators, who are your customers, and who are your followers. So just like what Bruna mentioned, those people that are advocating for you. You want to understand who those people are, because those are opportunities to be able to partner with them to create content or to be your brand ambassadors or your affiliates. And so for us at HeyOrca, we are able to identify those people in our communities and have them as our ambassadors, our co-hosts on our webinar, and even creating content with them on social as well. So these are the people that are highly engaged, and it's a small portion of the community that we're able to engage them and have them be our spokesperson, as opposed to us talking about our brands all the time. And then one thing that's really important is you're going to get a lot of different engagements, especially on social. So you want to have a principle like what's going to be reposted, what you're going to do with UGC, how you're going to deal with trolls and self-promotion. I think these are all conversations that are worthwhile having upfront, so that you're not having your social media manager, your marketers not stressing out, and then how should I handle these things? And it is what I want to talk about more, which is to Pauline's question. You want to combine both on social and off social. So don't just think about your journey as we're just here to create engagement on social. You want to think about what are you going to do with the attention. So the attention, just on a high level, like to get the attention, we have to then earn the attention, which is we have to create content that it resonates with them. We need to create content that captivates them. Like the attention is so fleeting that the way we create content needs to be at a certain quality as well to be able to captivate. But at the end of the day, it's about the things that we're creating. Is it relevant to people that we want to reach? And then once we get their attention, why should they follow us? And then when they follow us, what do we do with that attention? And for us, we move them to off social spaces, which is our newsletter and our webinar. The reason is because then you get the attention and you're able to then keep building on that relationship and not leaving it to chance that they will see your next post. So that's actually how we do it. And I'm just gonna pause here, and this is actually how we think about it. So you have your social media communities here, and then you have your own community. So for you guys would be newsletters. So I'm assuming like some of you are Cyberimpact customers and you have an email newsletter. This is what you want to think about, is how do we combine both social media and own communities together? And so for us, we use social to attract more people that are social media managers. Then our call to action is not to buy HeyOrca or to sign up for HeyOrca. Our call to action is actually, hey, join our newsletter where we have like more of these things that's delivered to your inbox. So our pitch is, if you like what you see, join our daily newspaper for social media managers. And the pitch is like 1 minute emails every day to keep you up to date, because our social media managers, customers, they they're stressed out over the algorithm changes and they just want to know that they're not left behind. And that's basically our promise to them, that you join our communities and we'll keep you posted. And then from the newsletter, we basically redirect them to like the webinars, to our Facebook group. And our Facebook group currently is like 10,000, but took time to get there. And now everyone's like having conversations, but they're all coming from social to newsletter to those close communities. And then when they have to talk about a really good webinar they attended, it actually goes into social media, that people then join our newsletter, then join our Facebook group, and becomes a flywheel. So I want to encourage you to think about both sides of the equation. If you have a newsletter, think about what your social media looks like. If you have social media presence, think about how that actually adds to your newsletter. Okay. Um,
And it's
what
really
about you?
interesting in the way you say it because you have different paths. You have like a little road that the person can go through
Yeah,
depending on their level of engagement. So if they're following you, like, okay, I'm aware of what HeyOrca is and what you do, they follow on your social, but if they want to engage more with you, they can go to the newsletter, and then it just goes up from there, up to the point where, well, I love what you're doing. I want to be more involved. They can join your webinars. So you
yeah,
have thought about all the steps, all the stages that an engaged user can be with you. So yeah, they follow the path from follower to co-creator. So this is it's very cool to see it being like a cycle like that. It's really
yeah.
interesting.
So you have like people, if like before follower, you probably say like lurkers. You have lurkers or stalkers, like people that don't know you and then they stalk you and then they're like, should I follow Bruna? Should I follow HeyOrca? Huh. Then it goes down to like value, right? Like if I follow them and I curate my feed, okay, I
Mhm.
like that because it's educational content about social media. Cool, give it a follow. And then you want to move them down the value chain essentially. So you pass it off to the closed communities. And those
Mhm.
people that says, yes, I want to join the Kills community are people that actually want to take the next step with you. And so
Mhm.
then you can start identifying your advocates, identifying your potential co-creators.
Yeah. And it's funny because the how this webinar came to happen, it's pretty much following that step because
Yeah.
I started following someone from your team. It's like, oh, hey work, it's cool. Okay, let me see what it's about. It's a Canadian social media
Mm,
management platform. And then follow. We see you at the events, we see the things happening. It's like, oh, maybe this is cool. We have a problem. We need a platform to manage our socials.
yeah.
Then we started
Right.
using, okay, this is good. This is interesting. They have this, they have the community. Let's invite them to a webinar. And now here we are. So we
Yeah. So
went
like
through the
we're
ladder, guys.
co-creators, right? Right.
And then
Right
we're
now.
co-creators. Here we are. So it works. You see?
Yeah, so like that's basically kind of, it's not going to be so neat like a circle
Yeah,
like
of
what I
course.
just drew. It's going to be go like this, but on a whole, you're able to explain. This is why we're investing in newsletter, because we're building trust, and not for the sake of just building trust, because trust is also obviously very valuable. It's the outcome of our brand loyalty, but you can explain that this trust ultimately is to go for advocacy on social, and then for social go back there, because people follow people. You know, when they see other
Exactly.
people saying like, you know, Cyberimpact's webinars are really great, then it's going to drive back. It's going to take time, experimentation, and that's the
Mhm.
point. It's finding community market fit, what resonates with our community, but it starts with a mindset shift. It's not about like we need a newsletter, we need webinar, we need this. It's actually starting with like what are the spaces that we feel our community will enjoy interacting with, and then you invest in that. It might be Reddit, it might be like the makerspace that created their own space. Like it really, really doesn't matter. It's about what your community actually where they will show up. So, what does community look like for HeyOrca? This is something that's game changing for us. So, before 2022, I guess we would be posting on LinkedIn, you know, HeyOrca would be posting all the time. But one thing that shifted our mindset is like, hey, you know what? We are not the main character. Our community is actually the main character. So, we started actually reposting things instead of posting too often. So reposting became like a really important part of us to be able to amplify voices, to be able to showcase our employees' content and let them tell the story. So instead of controlling the narrative, let them tell it. And they will tell that story if you have a good community and have a good message for them. You know, for HeyOrca, it's all about social media manager's best friend. Social media's point is to build community. That's the message for us. And so people talking about that. And that also means helping your employees build their personal brand as well, right? So Instead of us saying like, happy, we call it Orcaversary, happy Orcaversary to this person, we want our employees to actually say, this is what happened to me this week, and then we want to repost that. So instead of us saying it, the executives needs to be the one recognizing your employees, and the brand's job is to just amplify it. That's it. Like, that's your job, and to encourage those people to actually show up. And so our community started showing up for us, and we identified those community members that are very passionate about HeyOrca, and we started inviting them to be creators with us and also be co-hosting with us. So these are some of the creators that we work with. These are people that really, really believe in what HeyOrca is trying to do. And instead of just saying like, yeah, giving it a thumbs up and just reposting it, we actually took it further and say, we would love to give you a free account of HeyOrca because we want to co-create with you. So these are the kinds of things that you can start ideate. What are some of the things that you can do in exchange to help them be a co-creator with you? And like I said, when you show up for your community, they'll show up for you. It's kind of like, I guess, like marketing karma. Like you need to put in the work, and then they come up like but you have to create that space to happen, right? So for us, the webinar is great. After every webinar, people would like post it about the webinar, what they learned, and then this person drew a whole thing about the webinar, which is really, really cool. And so that being said, I want to sort of encourage everybody that this is not going to happen overnight. So it took us a while to get there. I believe that you can do it faster than us because there's a lot more knowledge around how to build communities now. But it took time. It took time to find the right fit. It took time to reach a certain number, and we just didn't give up. Every week we just kept doing it. And over time, people start talking about our webinars, start talking about newsletter, and then we start getting more stuff. And if you can get resources, paid marketing is where this comes in. Paid marketing's job is not to lead the charge per se. I would say like paid marketing, that's the most efficient way, is actually to amplify things that are already working. So a webinar program that's already working, amplify it. So instead of like going to cold audiences, like being able to amplify it to the community. So finally, we're in the business of building communities, and community is the one thing that your competitors can't copy. So all of us have competitors, and I don't know if maybe I'm just insecure. I always think about, shoot, like, what is something I can do that they cannot copy? And the answer, the antidote to my anxiety is community. Um, when you invest in community, you know that these people have loyalty to you because you're loyal to them, because you show up for them, you create spaces for them to interact. And this is something and this is very, very unique to you. This is something that your other competitors cannot copy. They have their own version, but you have yours, and people came to you for a reason. And we can also extend this to our personal brand as well. All of our personal brands, we don't have context, we have communities, right? And so think about like your personal brand. If you're building a personal brand as well, how can I take a community mindset and build that? Like, what should I talk about? What's a shared interest that who do I want to get in front of? What are those shared identities that actually make sense? You can actually go through this whole thing. What's my purpose? Why do I want to start posting on LinkedIn? Is it my ego? Or is it because I really want to build like a personal brand so that, I'm able to do like cooler stuff? Shared identity. What's my value? Why should people follow me on LinkedIn? Right? How do I measure success? Like, how do I make sure that I know it's working? So you can also apply this to your own personal brand. It's not just for company, but this allows us to think about people as people, right? Humans as humans, and think about it as a group of humans is called a community, and the only difference is that they exist on the digital space. And our job is to create this space and to make sure that it's a fun place, it's a supportive space that people want to go and hang out, and then they're going to show up for us. We believe that they're going to activate and they're going to show up for us as well. So that's a little bit about how we've done. Happy to sort of show some of the things that we do, but I hope that this inspires you to take a community mindset when it comes to marketing and not just putting out content.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think, this is very valuable to a lot of people. I think when they think about communities, that's a big question. Okay, should we open a Facebook group? Should we open a LinkedIn group?
Yeah.
But what we always talk about at Cyber Impact is how, yes, social media is the best way for you to find people.
Yeah.
You get awareness. You're gonna see a lot of people will be seeing you. The eyes will be on you, but the way that you really you get that connection with people, you really engage with them is when you go to email, when you use a
Yes.
newsletter,
Got
because
it.
for people to sign up for a newsletter, you're giving them your email.
Yeah.
You're people are opening themselves up for you and trusting you, so they give you your email, and that's the best space that you can be at, because sometimes people will go on a social media break, but maybe they'll still open their emails. And if
Oh,
you're
the algorithm just decide that you're not cool anymore and you're not showing up, right?
yeah, you're like, if sometimes when you're like, I come from content creation, so sometimes you need a break.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need a break. You're just posting, you're posting and ghosting. You don't have time to engage, and you're gonna be penalized by the algorithm for this.
Yeah.
And when you have a newsletter, when you have another community that is your own community, that makes a whole lot of difference. There's a good question here from Marcella. It's, what would you recommend for learning what your community wants to learn, especially if your engagement with your audience is low or just non-existent? I think this comes back to what you talked about, getting the feedback from the person, letting the community tell you what
Yeah.
they want, right?
So three things you can do. So this is a great question. So three things. You should do all three, by the way. The first one is experiment. So think about every data point, every content. So we have another, actually, can I drop our academy here? So we talk
Of
about how
course.
to actually create content for your for your community. So the first thing is experiment. So every content pieces that you come out, like don't think about it as something that has to work. It's a data point. It's like, okay, I start with a hypothesis that people want to learn more. So let's say, yeah, let's say for HeyOrca, right? People want to learn more about what's trending this, every week. And so
Mm-hmm.
let's put some content out there around that one. Um, and so I come up with you come up with a few content pillars that you think is
Mm-hmm.
going to resonate, and then run that for 2 weeks. Your whole goal on the 2 weeks is just to see if you're on the right track.
Yeah.
And then if you're on the right track, how about different formats? Maybe reels versus carousels,
Mm-hmm.
maybe this and that, maybe different channels. So first, experiments. Second, if you have a newsletter, if you have even just like couple people that sort of follow you, just ask them like,
Mm-hmm.
why did you follow me? You know, like, what would you want to see more of?
Yeah.
And really just ask them. It doesn't matter about like the number of people. It's about just
Mhm.
getting intuition. Intuition is when we're like, we know if it's gonna work or not. Like Bruno, you know if it's going to work for your audience or not because you have that
Yeah.
intuition because you spend time with them. So it's less around being right, it's more around developing your intuition. You might be wrong, but it's about like, okay, I know,
I
this is
completely agree
not.
with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like if Jeff says, create this content, I want this like white paper, but you just like, I don't know how to explain
Oh,
it, but this
Jeff.
is but this is not gonna work. This
Yeah.
is not what I feel a customer says
And
is
also,
going to
your
say.
customers evolve. That's something that you learn, and then you
Yeah,
keep
exactly.
learning, because it will have sometimes it will be cyclical, because you have summer, you have winter. People sometimes spend more time on
Yeah.
social. They want to spend less time. They're interested in this. Like right now, people are waiting to see all the Black Friday offers. How do we do social during Black Friday and the holidays? How do I make sure that I'm not, that people are going to see me if they're getting 50 emails per day?
Yeah.
And so that's something that's interesting now, but come
It
next
can
year, come
evolve.
2025, that changes. So
Yeah.
having that sense of what your audience wants at different times is also big part of it, right?
Yes. And the last one I would say is look at people that inspire you and your competitors,
Yeah.
adjacent community. So let's say if we want to sort of like build content from scratch for HeyOrca, I'll look at like Hootsuite, Buffer, Sprout, Later, all
Hmm.
these guys and say, which one's actually working?
Hmm.
Which one's not? Like,
Yeah.
interesting, this is actually trending. So
Yeah.
those three things. So experiment, ask, and then stock. So that's I would say. I hope that
There's
helps.
another question here for Gliama. Do you have any recommendations for building community and engagement through a newsletter when your brand does not have a social media platform?
So the question is, do you have any recommendations for building community and engagement through a newsletter when your brand does not have a social media platform? Yeah, I mean, that's how we actually build our community. So first off, I would say like if you don't have a social media platform, like definitely I would say like Get it? Like there's a lot of opportunities there that will help you learn and inspire you to create content for your newsletter as well. Like things you
Mhm.
see that people talk, like that will inspire your newsletter content as well. So again, I will go back to sort of like the community mindset. It's not about what you put in, it's about sort of how you think about your content. So what makes a good content, what makes a good newsletter versus a bad newsletter?
Yeah.
In my opinion, a bad newsletter is the ones that just it's like, back in 2010, like it's just a bunch of information. It's about
Mhm.
this is what's happening, blah blah blah, or like just a list of things.
Mhm.
Think about emails that you get from university, at least my university. It's just not engaging. It's not relevant to me. It's just a bunch of information, or like information about the city from the city, for example. You're
Yeah.
getting it, and it's just like okay, it just feels like a like a brochure, right? So a
Yeah.
brochure is the worst case of a newsletter. Now, the best newsletters are what I think is like the modern newsletters. Like you go on
Mhm.
Substack, if you guys know about the email newsletter platform, you go to these places. Like the way they actually create that, they create a space. So
Mhm.
although people can't talk to each other yet on those spaces, they're
Mhm.
surfacing like today. Like even we can use this webinar as sort
Mhm.
of like a way. So if we are to convert to a newsletter, instead of saying here's how to build a newsletter, we can say, sorry, this is how you build community. We can say we hosted a webinar yesterday, and these are some of the things that our community members ask, right? Someone asked about recommendation to building community and engagement. Someone asked about this, and these are the answers. And we also, and then we featured like Joe, like a guest speaker. So it's about how you use that space. It's not about, oh, because of the newsletter, I cannot build community. It's
Mhm.
about how you use it. Like social media can be a one directional thing if you use it wrongly, or you can actually use it and engage, and it becomes a community platform. I hope that's not
Yeah,
too
and
abstract.
when you're thinking about building a newsletter, sometimes you might not have a social media because it's a lot of things to handle. Maybe you're a small team, and I always think about this when it comes to small and medium companies. What I would recommend for you is, like Joe said, you kind of recycle your content. So if you do a webinar, you're not just doing one webinar. You can have all the replay that we have here, all the questions. This can lead into further other content. We can get a snippet of this video, like one quote from Joe that was really good. This will become a social media post. It can become a LinkedIn article, which it might happen in the future. If you follow us, you might see an article in the future about community building based on this. So whatever you create, also think about, like Joe said, also you can experiment with this. It's one format that you put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. Make sure that it lasts.
Yeah.
We have an expression in another language that says use the orange as the best that you can, like get all the juice, get all the pulp, get everything out of it, because you have to try it out and see if it works, you see if people like it and how people like it. Some people only watch short videos with no audio,
Yeah.
which I don't know how people do this, but some people just watch without audio. So maybe you need to caption your videos. Some people do not watch videos at all. So maybe you need to send a newsletter, but nobody can tell you what your audience wants or needs aside from you and themselves. So you learn from them and when they tell you what they want. So we can tell you do short form videos, do this, do webinars, do presentations, and yeah, try it out. I really think you should. And well, you see some results are more general, but you have to test with your audience and your community in the end.
Yeah.
Um, there's a comment here from Diane. I send monthly invitations to book meetings with me for customer satisfaction talks. And I
Hmm.
even offered to enter them in a monthly draw for a $50 Amazon gift card, but I'm still not getting great results. I want them more engaged, like can't wait to talk to me, more engaged.
Yeah, so that's a really good start. Like,
Yeah.
just trying different things. Like Bruna said, it's about experiments. Now, I will go
Hmm.
back to taking a step back. So instead of like saying I want more engagement, like ask ourselves,
Hmm.
what is, how do I build, like, why should they follow me, right? How do I build connections
Yeah.
so that when I ask for, that meeting,
Hmm.
they would care. So I,
Hmm.
I would say like I'll go back to sort of what I shared.
Hmm.
What is the value of them following you? And how do you actually provide the value in a more consistent basis? It's kind of like a friend that you haven't seen for a long time, and they say, "Oh, Bruno, we should catch up for coffee." was like, yeah,
Yeah.
we should, but like, why? Like, I haven't talked to you, right? I haven't
Like, why do
talked
you
to you
want to
in
talk to
like
me?
so. Yeah, exactly. Like, we haven't talked. Like, I don't know why we want to grab coffee, unless I have nothing to do, and if you're paying me to have coffee with you, maybe I'll do it. But like, you want to think about the same thing. It's like, how do we
Mhm.
actually show up for them? How do we
Yeah.
actually what are some of the opportunities? That's why social is really great, I think, because social allows people to passively consume things. And in
Mhm.
newsletter, you are in the inbox, so you decide like how much frequency is good. So
Mhm.
for us, at first we do a daily email.
Mhm.
So at first we were like, "Ah, daily sounds like a lot," but what we found is
Yeah,
it's
it is
not
a lot.
about the yeah, it sounds like a
I
lot, right?
salute you guys.
So we do daily. So but then we found like it's not about the frequency per se, it's
Mhm.
about the quality. So
Yeah.
for us, we want our emails you can consume it in 1 minute. Like
Mhm.
1 minute, that's it. Um so we realize it's about the quality and like every single day as we sort of send it into the inbox, they know to expect that and they're actually
Yeah.
building relationships with us. And then we show up on social more frequently as well. And so we're building so they know us. They feel like they how those YouTubers, I don't know if you guys are on YouTube, you follow these guys, you follow their vlogs, you follow their journey. They don't know who you are, but you feel like
Yeah.
you know them,
Because
right?
there's a connection there because they're talking. I come from YouTube, so there's a whole thing
Yeah,
that you build a connection with the person. You care so much about their lives and what they do, and it becomes. I'm
yeah,
very into the psychology of vlogging because you're basically watching someone's life and you feel like you're living that life. So, like, if they move or if they do something, you get excited, you get upset. And then if they stop, it's like, oh, there's this big part of my day that is just not there anymore.
yeah,
When it comes to your situation, Diane, what I would say is like the example that Joe gave is perfect of, maybe it's a friend that, maybe I don't want to get coffee with you because
yeah,
I'm not that interested. So you can use social or other resources that you have to build that interest. So maybe you don't need to offer the $50 Amazon gift
yeah,
card. You can share a little bit more, share more posts where you ask people for a reaction. React with a heart if you feel this way as well. And then you start using those little things of engagement, either the stickers on Instagram stories or the reactions on LinkedIn to get a better sense of what people are feeling and want. And when someone comments on your LinkedIn post, let's say, you can send them a message like, hey, thank you for commenting. How did you learn about our service or our product? And try to engage on those conversations in a more personal level. Yeah, of course, everybody wants to get a $50 gift card, but
but the
sometimes you don't want
short
to go to
term.
the effort. Yeah, they don't care
Yeah.
enough to like, oh, but I have to book a meeting, and then it's just
So a
attention is.
meeting is like the ultimate, like, so if you
Yeah,
think
of
about like
course.
commitment, right? So commitment. So
Hmm.
commitment levels, like meeting is here. I need to like have super interest for me to like meet you.
Yeah.
On one side, the least commitment is to just follow you on social media, right? So you
Yes.
think about commitment levels, and the way to move people from here, from again the roles, right, from like stalker or follower to advocates, is actually trust. So then you ask yourself, like, how do I build trust? So it's not just digital. Maybe it's also offline spaces. Like
Hmm.
I don't know, host a coffee meetup with other people that are like-minded, whatever it is. Like you just ask yourself, how do I build trust? And you build trust through creating those opportunities, those moments. Like then you ask
Yes.
yourself, how do I best create those moments? How do I best
Hmm.
create those moments like repeatedly on digital? And how do I create these moments like offline? If you're a realtor, that's why they have like open houses or like appreciation events or
Yeah.
whatever it is. Like that's how you want to think about it. Like this is my big ask, but for people to take that ask, the trust needs to be built. And in
Mhm.
marketing, trust can be built through content, but content's about how we approach the content. So not just putting out newsletter, but what are the things that we put out and why should they continue to give us their attention?
Awesome. We're running out of time, everyone, unfortunately. But if you want to review this webinar, the replay will be sent to everyone who registered to be here. If you're watching the replay, thank you so much for watching this afterwards. If you have any questions, feel free to send it over to our customer success team, or you can send them up to Joe on LinkedIn and HeyOrca social media. Thank you, Joe,
Can
for
I
taking the time. I think this was great. I think this was helpful. Even to me, I'll rewatch this again because there's definitely some things that we want to put into practice at Cyberimpact, and we're fans of what you guys are doing and how much you're helping social media. As a content marketing specialist, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I have two things. Thanks for having me. If you want to connect me with me on LinkedIn, that's my LinkedIn profile. And also, Bruna, can I get a picture with you?
Of course,
Okay, one,
go it for the
one,
socials.
two, three. Yes. So this is also another way to build community. So one quote, I'll just end with this. People think that we don't have stories to share, right? We always say like, what to post? What do I post? How do I create those moments? It's not that we don't have stories to share. We don't document them.
Yes.
We don't document them. Like we
Yes.
just like go through life and we're like, we're so boring. Like we're the most boring person in Montreal. We're the most boring person in Newfoundland, right? But actually you're very interesting. We're just like not documenting our like this is a moment.
Hmm.
And I just documented it. Oh, and then now I can put it in my newsletter. I can put it in social.
Yeah.
Um, we need to get into the habit of documenting. But anyways, you're very interesting. Show yourself, right? Who you are, why
Yeah.
should people follow you? And one of the components that people follow people is because people are interested in you personally as well.
Yeah, and I can tell you this from many, many years on YouTube, and everything that I've researched and the marketing and stuff, all the biggest creators and the most relevant one and that create the deepest connections, they will tell you the same thing. You don't have to always create and you don't have to always make the best post ever. Sometimes you just have to document what you're doing because
Yeah.
what you're doing, it's already interesting. So if Joe hadn't documented the process of them creating a community, we wouldn't have this
Mhm.
webinar, we wouldn't have this to share because they wouldn't have the data, they wouldn't have the information, they wouldn't have everything to show us right now. So sometimes the way to build that connection with the people so they can give you more feedback, so you can have the community, is just sharing what you're doing.
Yeah.
So share that you're growing, that you're learning, that you're building up stock, that you're going to this and this event. So
You
yeah,
gotta have fun
document and
too.
create.
You gotta
Yeah.
have fun as well. If you're not
Oh, I
enjoying what
love
you're
it.
sharing, if
Yeah.
you don't enjoying what you're sharing, you're gonna burn out. That's why people call it like creator burnout. Like,
Oh,
oh, like you're not having fun anymore. So you want to make sure that the stuff that you're actually doing, you're in service of the community, but also for yourself. The battery that's going to help you keep going to showing up for your community is that you're having fun. You're having fun talking about same things. You're having fun doing this. Like Bruno can talk about 3D printing the whole night, right? Because you're
all
having
day.
fun. Yeah. So that's really important as well. It's something I learned recently. If not, you'll burn out. But you want to make sure that you have fun.
Yeah. Nothing but great advice, Joe. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks so
you,
much for having me.
everyone. Have a great rest of your day, of your week. And we're really glad that you really
Thanks,
enjoyed the
Diane.
webinar. Thank you, Diane. Thank you, everyone who's been here. And make sure that you follow Hey Orca to see more content on being a social media marketing and working with marketing,
Yes.
and to Cyber Impact about email marketing and
Mm-hmm.
how to build a newsletter that people can engage with.
All
Have a
right.
great
Thanks,
day,
guys.
everyone.